Kang Tae-jin stood at the edge of the forest, staring into the distance. His clothes were torn, his boots dusty from weeks of wandering. The wind carried the scent of damp earth and pine needles, but he barely noticed. His mind was heavy with memories of battles fought, comrades lost, and a world that no longer wanted him. Tae-jin had once been a proud warrior, respected by many in the human empire. But that life felt like a dream now. He had disobeyed orders during a rebellion, refusing to slaughter innocent civilians just because they lived in a rebel-controlled city. For that act of defiance, he was stripped of his rank, exiled, and left to survive on his own. No one cared about honor anymore. Only power mattered. The planet Veyrath stretched before him, vast and untamed. It was home to humans who had colonized its surface centuries ago, but it also belonged to another race, the dragons. These creatures were not beasts, as some humans believed. They were intelligent, wise, and deeply connected to nature. Yet their relationship with humanity was strained. Many feared them, while others hunted them for profit. Tae-jin sighed and adjusted the straps of his backpack. He didn't know where he was going, only that he needed to keep moving. Staying in one place too long made him feel trapped, reminded him of everything he had lost. So he walked deeper into the wilderness, away from cities and people. After hours of trekking, he came across something unusual, a narrow path carved between towering cliffs. The air grew cooler, and the sounds of birds faded. Curiosity pulled him forward until he reached an opening. Before him lay a hidden valley, bathed in golden sunlight filtering through the trees. At its center stood large mounds covered in moss and vines. Nesting grounds, dragon nests. Tae-jin froze. Dragons were dangerous, even if they weren't hostile by nature. Encountering one could mean death. Still, he couldn't turn back. Something about this place called to him, a quiet pull he couldn't explain. Slowly, he stepped closer, careful not to make any noise. As he approached, he saw movement. A young dragon emerged from one of the nests, its scales shimmering like emeralds under the light. It looked around cautiously, then nudged something inside the nest, a cluster of eggs. Tae-jin watched in awe. He had heard stories of dragon hatchlings, but seeing them up close was different. They were beautiful, fragile things, full of potential. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the valley. Tae-jin spun around, heart pounding. From the shadows of the cliffs, figures appeared. Men armed with rifles and nets. Poachers. Their leader, a burly man with a scar across his cheek, barked orders to his team. "Check every nest! We need those eggs!" Tae-jin clenched his fists. Dragon eggs were worth a fortune on the black market. People crushed them to extract rare minerals found within their shells or sold them to collectors willing to pay insane amounts. What these men planned to do was wrong, cruel even. And yet, what could he do? He was alone, outnumbered, and unarmed. But as he glanced back at the young dragon guarding her nest, doubt crept in. Could he really stand by and let them destroy this family? Memories of his past flooded his mind, the faces of the civilians he had saved, the lives he had protected despite knowing the consequences. He had chosen to fight for what was right then, and maybe he could do it again. Taking a deep breath, Tae-jin grabbed a fallen branch from the ground. It wasn't much of a weapon, but it would have to do. Quietly, he moved behind a nearby rock, waiting for the right moment. When one of the poachers passed close enough, he struck, knocking the man unconscious with a single blow. The commotion drew attention. Another poacher turned, raising his rifle. Tae-jin dodged just in time, the bullet grazing his shoulder. Pain shot through him, but he ignored it. He charged forward, using the element of surprise to disarm his opponent. One by one, he took down the poachers, relying on skill and instinct honed over years of battle. Yet, there were too many of them. As exhaustion set in, Tae-jin realized he couldn't win this fight alone. Just as he braced himself for the final blow, a deafening roar shook the valley. The young dragon had joined the fray, her wings spread wide as she unleashed a stream of fire. The remaining poachers scattered, screaming in terror. When silence returned, Tae-jin collapsed to his knees, blood seeping from his wounds. The dragon approached him cautiously, tilting her head as if trying to understand why this human had risked his life for her. She nudged him gently, almost like a gesture of thanks. Despite the pain, Tae-jin managed a weak smile. "You're welcome," he whispered, though he doubted she understood. As darkness closed in, Tae-jin felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time since his exile, he had done something meaningful. Whether he lived or died here, he knew he had made a difference. And perhaps in this forgotten corner of the world, he had finally found a place where he belonged. When Kang Tae-jin opened his eyes, he found himself lying on a soft bed of moss, surrounded by towering trees. His wounds were bandaged, though they still throbbed with pain. He blinked, trying to piece together what had happened. The last thing he remembered was collapsing after the fight with the poachers. A low rumble caught his attention. Turning his head slowly, he saw the young dragon from the nest watching him intently. Her emerald scales glistened in the sunlight as she tilted her head, studying him with curious eyes. Tae-jin smiled faintly despite his discomfort. "You saved me," he murmured, unsure if she could understand. Moments later, another presence entered the clearing, a much larger dragon, its size dwarfing the younger one. Its scales shimmered like molten gold, and its eyes glowed with wisdom. Tae-jin tensed instinctively, but the creature made no move to attack. Instead, it lowered its massive head toward him, exhaling a warm breath that carried a strange sense of calm. Then something unexpected happened. A voice echoed in Tae-jin's mind, not spoken aloud, but clear as day. "You protected my kin when others would have fled. Why?" Tae-jin froze. Was this some kind of trick? Or was the dragon truly speaking to him? Hesitant but unable to ignore the question, he replied softly, "It was the right thing to do." The golden dragon regarded him for a long moment before responding. "Few humans value life over profit. You are different." "I'm not special," Tae-jin said, looking away. "Oh, I just did what I thought was right." The dragon let out a low growl, almost like a chuckle. "Perhaps. But your actions speak louder than words. My name is Hwa-ryung. I am the matriarch of this nest, and you, human, have earned my gratitude." Tae-jin wasn't sure how to respond. Dragons were supposed to be fearsome creatures, yet Hwa-ryung seemed thoughtful. "My name is Kang Tae-jin," he finally said, "but I don't deserve thanks. Anyone would have done the same." Hwa-ryung snorted, sending a small puff of smoke into the air. "Do not lie to yourself. Not all humans are as noble as you claim. Many see us only as beasts or treasures to exploit. Your presence here puts you at risk. There are those among my kind who will not trust you easily." Before Tae-jin could reply, a rustling sound came from nearby bushes, and several smaller dragons emerged, their scales gleaming in shades of green, blue, and bronze. They circled cautiously, sniffing the air as if deciding whether to approach. One of them, a playful hatchling, darted forward and nuzzled against Tae-jin's arm. Startled, he flinched, but quickly relaxed when the little dragon let out a happy chirp. Hwa-ryung watched the interaction silently. Finally, she spoke again. "Stay if you wish, but know this. Danger lingers near. The poachers you drove away will return. Their greed knows no bounds." Tae-jin nodded grimly. "If they come back, I'll stop them again." "Brave words," Hwa-ryung said, her tone both amused and wary. "But bravery alone cannot protect you, or us." Despite the warning, Tae-jin decided to stay. Over the next few days, he began helping the dragons in small ways. He scoured the forest for edible plants and herbs, bringing them back to feed the younger ones. When an injured hatchling struggled to walk, he fashioned a splint using materials he scavenged from abandoned ruins nearby. Slowly but surely, the dragons grew accustomed to his presence. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, Tae-jin sat beside the nest, watching the hatchlings play. Hwa-ryung joined him, her massive form casting a comforting shadow over the area. She lowered herself onto the ground with a heavy sigh. "Tell me, human," she began, her voice gentle. "Why do you stay? You owe us nothing." Tae-jin hesitated, searching for the right words. "I don't belong anywhere else," he admitted. "Out there, I'm just a man with no purpose. Here, I can make a difference. Even if it's small." Hwa-ryung studied him for a moment before nodding slightly. "You carry sorrow within you, yet you choose to act selflessly. That is rare among your kind." Her words struck a chord deep inside Tae-jin. For so long, he had believed himself useless, cast aside by society. But here, in this hidden valley, he felt needed, for the first time in years. However, peace never lasts forever. Days turned into weeks, and rumors began to spread about the exiled warrior living among the dragons. Bounty hunters hired by the Empire to track down deserters picked up Tae-jin's trail. Among them was a ruthless mercenary named Yoon Jae-ho, known for his cunning and ruthlessness. Jae-ho led a team of skilled fighters, equipped with advanced weapons designed specifically to subdue dragons, and they tracked Tae-jin's movements through the wilderness, closing in on the valley. Unaware of their approach, Tae-jin continued caring for the dragons, oblivious to the storm gathering on the horizon. One morning, as Tae-jin tended to a wounded hatchling, Hwa-ryung suddenly stiffened, her ears perking up. Moments later, a distant explosion shook the ground. Smoke rose above the treetops, followed by shouts and the unmistakable whine of energy rifles. The bounty hunters had arrived. "They're here!" Hwa-ryung growled, her voice laced with anger. "Prepare yourself, human. This battle will test your courage, and ours." Tae-jin tightened his grip on a makeshift spear he had crafted earlier. "We'll face them together," he said firmly, determination burning in his eyes. As the first wave of attackers stormed into the valley, and Tae-jin stood side by side with the dragons, ready to defend the nest once more. Though outnumbered and outgunned, he knew retreat was not an option. These dragons had accepted him, trusted him. He wouldn't let them down. The clash erupted in chaos, fire meeting bullets as dragon and human fought as one. Tae-jin moved with precision, taking down enemies with every strike. But the mercenaries were relentless, pushing deeper into the valley. Despite their efforts, it became clear that victory would come at a cost. And somewhere amidst the smoke and flames, Tae-jin realized his journey might end here, but not without leaving behind a legacy worth remembering. The valley erupted into chaos as the bounty hunters pressed their attack. The mercenaries moved with precision, their weapons firing beams of energy that tore through the air. Our dragons roared in defiance, unleashing torrents of fire that lit up the sky. Amidst the flames and smoke, Kang Tae-jin fought with everything he had, his makeshift spear clashing against advanced weaponry. Though outnumbered, Tae-jin's experience as a soldier gave him an edge. He darted between trees and rocks, using the terrain to his advantage. With each strike, he took down another enemy, but the mercenaries kept coming. Their leader, Yoon Jae-ho, barked orders from the shadows, directing his team to focus on the nests. The eggs were their target, and they wouldn't stop until they had them. Hwa-ryung soared above the battlefield, her golden scales reflecting the fiery glow of dragon breath. She unleashed wave after wave of searing flames, scattering the attackers. But even she couldn't cover every corner of the valley. The smaller dragons joined the fight, diving at the mercenaries with claws extended. Hatchlings huddled together near the nests, their cries piercing the din of battle. Tae-jin spotted Jae-ho sneaking toward one of the nests, his rifle aimed at a cluster of eggs. Without hesitation, Tae-jin charged forward, tackling the mercenary to the ground. They rolled across the dirt, grappling for control. Jae-ho was strong, but Tae-jin's determination gave him strength. With a final burst of effort, he disarmed the man and delivered a swift blow to his jaw, knocking him unconscious. But victory came at a cost. As Tae-jin stood up, he felt a sharp pain in his side. One of the mercenaries had fired a shot, hitting him with a bolt of energy. He staggered, clutching the wound, but forced himself to keep moving. There was no time to rest, not while the dragons still needed him. The battle raged on, neither side willing to give up. The mercenaries regrouped, forming a tight circle around the largest nest. They set charges, intending to destroy it if they couldn't take the eggs. Hwa-ryung let out a mournful roar, her eyes filled with anguish. If the nest was lost, countless lives would perish before they even began. Tae-jin saw the explosives and understood what had to be done. "Distract them!" he shouted to the dragons, though he knew they might not fully understand. "I'll stop the charges." Hwa-ryung hesitated, sensing the weight of his words. "Do not do this," she said telepathically, her voice trembling. "You have already given so much." "I can't let them win," Tae-jin replied, gripping his spear tightly. "Protect the hatchlings." That's all that matters." Before Hwa-ryung could respond, Tae-jin sprinted toward the mercenaries, drawing their attention. He weaved through their attacks, dodging blasts of energy and swinging his weapon with deadly accuracy. The dragons followed his lead, launching coordinated assaults that pushed the mercenaries back. Reaching the nest, Tae-jin knelt beside the explosives. His hands trembled as he examined the device. It was unlike anything he'd seen before, complicated and alien. But he didn't have time to think. Pulling a knife from his belt, he began cutting wires, hoping luck would guide him. Behind him, the mercenaries regrouped and opened fire. A blast struck nearby, sending Tae-jin sprawling. Pain surged through his body, but he forced himself to crawl back to the explosives. Just one more wire. The world slowed as Tae-jin severed the final connection. The charges deactivated, sparing the nest. Relief washed over him, but it was short-lived. Another explosion rocked the ground, throwing debris into the air. Tae-jin shielded the eggs with his body, taking the brunt of the impact. When the dust settled, Hwa-ryung found him lying motionless among the wreckage. Blood soaked his clothes, and his breathing was shallow. She lowered her head, nudging him gently. "Why?" she asked, her voice heavy with sorrow. "Why did you do this?" Tae-jin managed a weak smile, his voice barely audible. "Because someone has to stand up, someone has to protect the innocent." He coughed, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. "Tell my story. Remember me." Hwa-ryung let out a mournful cry, echoing across the valley. And her grief resonated with the other dragons who gathered around the fallen warrior. For a moment, the entire battlefield fell silent, the mercenaries retreating in awe of the scene before them. As Tae-jin's eyes closed for the last time, he felt a strange warmth envelop him. It wasn't pain or fear. It was peace. He had spent years believing he was worthless, cast aside by those he once served. But here, among these creatures who saw him not as a traitor but as a hero, he had found purpose. The dragons remained by his side, guarding his body long after the mercenaries fled. When dawn broke, the valley was quiet once more. Hwa-ryung lifted Tae-jin's lifeless form onto her back and carried him to the highest peak overlooking the nests. There, she placed him gently on the ground and spread her wings wide. The other dragons joined her, or forming a circle around the fallen warrior. Together, they sang, a haunting melody that carried far beyond the valley. It was a song of gratitude, of remembrance, and of hope. Through their voices, Tae-jin's legacy would live on. By the time the sun rose high in the sky, Tae-jin's body was gone, taken by the wind. Only his memory remained, etched into the hearts of the dragons. and though he was no longer there to see it, his actions had sparked something within them, a belief that humans too could be capable of great kindness. As the days passed, stories of the exiled warrior spread among the dragon clans. Some dismissed them as myths, but others believed. Among the younger dragons, whispers grew louder. Tales of a human who had sacrificed everything to protect their kind. These stories inspired change, were planting seeds of curiosity about humanity's true nature. In the end, Tae Jin's death became more than just a tragedy. It became a legend, a testament to the power of courage, compassion, and sacrifice. And though the Empire sought to erase his name, the dragons ensured it would never be forgotten. Years passed since the day Kang Tae-jin sacrificed himself for the dragon nests. The valley where he had fallen remained unchanged, its beauty untouched by time. But beyond its borders, the world moved forward, shaped by whispers of the exiled warrior's bravery. Among the dragons, Tae-jin's name became legendary. Stories of his sacrifice traveled far and wide, carried by the winds that swept across Vaerath. Some clans dismissed the tales as mere fables, but others embraced them, finding inspiration in the idea that humans could possess honor and selflessness. These stories began to shift the dragon's perception of humanity. Not all humans were greedy or cruel, they realized. Some, like Tae-jin, were willing to stand against injustice, even at great personal cost. The Empire, however, showed no sign of changing. If anything, its grip on the planet tightened. Exploitation of resources continued unchecked, and tensions between humans and dragons grew worse. Many feared another war was inevitable. Yet amidst this growing unrest, a spark of hope emerged. A young human explorer named Yoon Ji-un. Ji-un was different from most humans. Unlike those who sought wealth or power, she dedicated her life to understanding the mysteries of Vaerath. Her fascination with dragons stemmed not from greed, but from curiosity. She wanted to learn about their culture, their history, and their connection to the land. Armed with notebooks, maps, and an insatiable thirst for knowledge, she wandered into uncharted territories seeking answers. One evening, while camping near a remote forest, Ji-un encountered a group of dragons. At first, they regarded her with suspicion, their eyes narrowing as they circled her tent. But instead of running or fighting, Ji-un stepped outside calmly, holding out an offering, a piece of fruit she had brought along. "I mean no harm," she said softly, bowing low. "I only wish to understand." The dragons hesitated, then one of them approached, a young female with shimmering silver scales. Using telepathy, she spoke to Ji-un. "Why do you come here? Most humans fear us, or hunt us." "I don't fear you," Ji-un replied honestly. "Mun and I would never hurt you. I want to learn about your kind, about your stories." Intrigued, the dragons shared fragments of their history, including tales of the exiled warrior who had given his life to protect their nests. Ji-un listened intently, captivated by the story of Kang Tae-jin. When the dragons finished, she asked, "Do you know what happened to him?" "His body returned to the earth," the silver dragon answered. "But his spirit lives on in our songs. He taught us that humans can be more than conquerors, they can be allies." Ji-un felt a pang of admiration for Tae-jin. His actions reminded her of why she had chosen this path, to bridge the gap between humans and dragons. Determined to uncover more about him, she ventured deeper into the wilderness, following clues left behind in dragon folklore. Then her journey eventually led her to the valley where Tae-jin had perished. It was a sacred place now, guarded fiercely by Hwaryong and her kin. When Ji-un arrived, the golden dragon confronted her, her massive form casting a shadow over the explorer. "Who are you?" Hwaryong demanded, her voice sharp yet tinged with caution. "My name is Yoon Ji-un," she replied, meeting the dragon's gaze without flinching. "I've heard stories of a human who once stood beside your kind, a man named Kang Tae-jin. I came to see if they're true." Hua-ryung studied her carefully, sensing sincerity in her words. Finally, she nodded. They are true. Taijin gave his life to save us. Why does this matter to you? Because his story gives me hope, Ji-eun admitted. If one human could earn your trust, maybe others can too. Maybe we can find a way to live together, without fear or hatred. Hwa-ryung let out a low rumble, considering her words. Though many dragons still distrusted humans, Ji-eun's presence stirred something within her. Perhaps it was time to test whether humanity had truly changed. Meanwhile, trouble brewed elsewhere. The Empire had discovered the existence of the hidden valley and planned to seize it, believing the land contained valuable minerals. Troops were mobilized, and advanced machinery prepared for excavation. Unaware of these developments, Ji-eun spent her days learning from the dragons, documenting their customs, and forging bonds with them. One night, as she sat by a fire sketching dragon designs in her notebook, a hatchling approached her timidly. It nudged her hand, drawing her attention to a distant ridge. There, silhouetted against the moonlight, stood several figures, human soldiers scouting the area. Ji-eun's heart sank. She knew what this meant. The Empire intended to invade the valley, just as the poachers had years ago, only this time the threat was far greater. Rushing to Hwa-ryung, Ji-eun explained what she had seen. We must prepare, the matriarch declared, rallying her clan. This time we will not face them alone. Ji-eun nodded. Let me help. I know how the Empire operates. Together, we can stop them. Though some dragons doubted her abilities, Hwa-ryung trusted her judgment. You carry Taijin's spirit within you, she said. Prove yourself worthy of his legacy. With renewed determination, Ji-eun devised a plan. She suggested using the valley's natural terrain to their advantage, setting traps and ambush points to slow the invaders. And the dragons agreed, combining their strength with Ji-eun's strategic mind. As preparations unfolded, Ji-eun reflected on Taijin's sacrifice. Though she had never met him, she felt connected to him through the dragon's memories. His courage inspired her to fight for a better future, one where humans and dragons could coexist peacefully. When the Empire's forces finally arrived, they found themselves facing not just dragons, but also a human ally who understood their weaknesses. The battle that followed was fierce, but unity proved stronger than division. Side by side, Ji-eun and the dragons drove back the invaders, protecting the valley and everything it represented. As dawn broke over the horizon, victory hung heavy in the air. Exhausted but triumphant, Ji-eun stood beside Hwa-ryung, watching the sun rise over the nests. In that moment, she realized Taijin's legacy had become her own. His story had ignited a flame within her, a flame that would continue to burn, lighting the way toward peace. The victory in the valley was hard won, but it came at a cost. Both humans and dragons had suffered losses during the battle against the Empire's forces. Smoke still lingered in the air, mingling with the scent of scorched earth and spilled blood. Yet amidst the destruction, there was hope, a fragile but undeniable promise of change. Yoon Ji-eun stood at the edge of the battlefield, her clothes torn and her body weary. She watched as the surviving dragons gathered around Hwa-ryung, their golden matriarch. The elder dragon's eyes glowed softly, reflecting both sorrow and determination. Though she had lost some of her kin, her resolve remained unshaken. Ji-eun approached cautiously, and knowing the weight of the moment. "We did it," she said quietly, though her voice carried pride. "They won't come back here." Hwa-ryung lowered her massive head to meet Ji-eun's gaze. "This is only the beginning," she replied telepathically. "The Empire will not stop seeking power, but today we showed them that unity is stronger than greed." Ji-eun nodded, understanding the truth in Hwa-ryung's words. The battle had proven something important. Not all humans were enemies, and not all dragons were untamable beasts. Together, they had forged an alliance born out of necessity, but also trust. It was a bond that could grow stronger over time if nurtured carefully. Word of the valley's defense spread quickly. News reached nearby human settlements, sparking debates among the colonists. Some dismissed the story as impossible. How could humans and dragons work together? Others saw it as a sign, proof that coexistence might be possible after all. Among these believers was a councilman named Park Min-soo, who had long advocated for peace between the two races. Min-soo traveled to the valley, seeking an audience with Hwaryong and Ji-un. When he arrived, he found the dragons wary but willing to listen. Ji-un acted as mediator, translating the councilman's intentions into terms the dragons could understand. Min-soo explained his vision, a treaty that would protect sacred lands like the valley while allowing humans access to resources elsewhere under strict guidelines. "Why should we trust your kind?" one of the younger dragons asked, his tone sharp. "Humans have betrayed us before." "It's true," Ji-un admitted, stepping forward. "But not all humans are the same. Some of us want to make things right. We owe it to Kang Tai-jin to remember what he taught us." Her words resonated deeply with the dragons. They remembered Tai-jin's sacrifice, how he had given everything to protect their nests. If one human could inspire such loyalty, perhaps others could too. After much deliberation, Hwaryong agreed to consider the proposal. "We will watch and wait," she said firmly. "If your people honored this treaty, we may find a way to live together, but betrayal will not be forgiven." Min-soo bowed low, promising to uphold the agreement. As he left the valley, Ji-un felt a sense of accomplishment wash over her. The road ahead would be difficult, but the first step had been taken. A fragile truce now existed between humans and dragons. It built on mutual respect and shared loss. In the weeks that followed, Ji-un dedicated herself to preserving Tai-jin's legacy. She documented his story, sharing it with anyone who would listen. Through her efforts, his name became synonymous with courage and selflessness. People began to see him not just as an exiled warrior, but as a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times, acts of kindness could spark change. The dragons, too, honored Tai-jin in their own way. On quiet evenings, when the wind swept through the valley, they sang songs of gratitude. Their voices carried far beyond the mountains, reaching distant clans and spreading the tale of the human who had stood beside them. For many dragons, Tai-jin's memory inspired curiosity about humanity's potential for good. One evening, as Ji-un sat by a fire sketching designs inspired by dragon scales, Hwaryong joined her. The golden dragon lowered herself onto the ground, her presence comforting yet commanding. "You have done well," she said, her mental voice warm. "Tai-jin would be proud." "I didn't do it alone," Ji-un replied, smiling faintly. "It was all of us, humans and dragons working together. That's what made the difference." Hwaryong let out a soft rumble, almost like a chuckle. "Perhaps, but you carry his spirit within you. You remind us that change begins with a single act of bravery." As the stars filled the night sky, Ji-un reflected on how far she had come. When she first entered the valley, she had been searching for answers. Now she realized she had found something greater, a purpose. By honoring Tai-jin's memory, she had become a bridge between two worlds, helping them take tentative steps toward peace. In the end, Tai-jin's sacrifice had not been in vain. His actions had ignited a chain reaction, inspiring others to follow his example. Though he was no longer physically present, his legacy lived on, in the songs of the dragons, in the hearts of those who believed in a better future, and in the fragile bond that now connected humans and dragons. As dawn broke over the valley, Ji-Yun climbed to the highest peak, where Tai-Jin's ashes had once been scattered. She closed her eyes, feeling the cool breeze against her face. Somewhere beyond the horizon, she imagined him watching over them, his spirit eternal and unyielding. "We'll keep fighting for what's right," she whispered, her voice carried away by the wind. "For you, and for everyone who believes in a world where we can stand together." And so, the legend of Kang Tai-Jin endured, a testament to the power of courage, compassion, and unity. In a universe often divided by fear and mistrust, his story served as a beacon of hope, reminding all who heard it that even the smallest acts of kindness could leave an everlasting mark.